Thanks, Nick. If you pick my accent, I'm from the deep south. And all of this technology, whichever capacitance probe you're using, generally they all originated in Australia, as did I. And I've been using this equipment for over 12 years, and I've followed it out here. I've been working in the Panhandle since 2006, and living out here on and off for the last 4 years. So what I want to do today is talk to you about turning water into money. As irrigators, that's what you do. You pump water out of the ground, you put it through a crop, and you turn it into money. And this is an investment strategy or an investment tool. And what I want to do is talk to you today about how and why that this is an investment tool, and some of the strategies that were successful in 2011. It was a wreck of a year for most people, but there was some people out there that made some changes that were really positive changes, and so I want to take you through that. I'm going to start just by introducing you to our technology really quickly. I'm not going to dwell on it, but what I've got here is a probe. It's a capacitance probe. We just saw another one earlier. This one has a sensor every 4 inches. So every 4 inches into the soil, I've got a sensor, and so a 40-inch probe like I've got here will have 10 sensors. A 60-inch probe will have 15 sensors. And so what we get is a continuous graph. We've just seen that. That had a very good explanation of looking at stair-stepping, so I thank you for that explanation. What we do, same type of sensor, same installation technique, auger a hole, mix up a mud slurry, and then embed the probe into the slurry. We need to do that after we get a plant stand, as soon after we get a plant stand as possible. And then we connect that to a telemetry unit in the field, so we have a short cable run. This telemetry, we use cellular rather than satellite, and it logs data every 15 minutes and sends it back to the internet every 30 minutes. So what you get is a stream of data, a graph, like we've just seen, coming to you online, and what we do as a company is offer this as a service. We're not selling equipment, we're selling a service. It's not an irrigation scheduling service, it's data and training and understanding on how to read and interpret that. So what do we do with it? Well, before I go there, let's have a look at 2011. Go forward and then come back a step. It was hot and dry, and most crops were under-irrigated. Pretty much goes without saying. And so all the previous rules went out the window. If you heard me talk last year, I was talking about strategic irrigation management. What is our investment strategy for turning water into money? Well, that went out the window in 2011. It was, we were way outside the box. And I'm going to go back and tell you what that strategy is, so you know, and then compare that to what happened in 2011. Then some of the strategies that worked this past year were slowing the pivot down. How do I turn that water into money better? Some people got great results, or wherever people slowed that pivot down, they got fantastic results. Bubblers outperformed sprinklers, and I'll show you some examples there. And also it's about timing. We hear a lot of research on the value of an inch of water in terms of bushels per inch, but that changes through the season because the demand for water changes through the season, and the sensitivity to crop stress changes throughout the season. So an inch is not an inch. An inch is worth a lot more at certain times, and so we need to be cognizant of that when we're creating our irrigation strategy. And if one thing, you can contrast 2010 versus 2011, and every year is different, and you could not get 2 more different seasons. But every year is different. Even if you got 4 inches of rain or 6 inches of rain this year, and again the next year, if that falls at different times, you're going to get a different result. And so what we're talking about is an investment strategy of that water to stay on track no matter what the season throws at you. And if it's trying to drag you off track, you can see that and get back on track. So let's have a look at this. What is this strategy I'm talking about for strategic irrigation management? Well, it starts by understanding the crop. And in this case, I've got a crop water use curve for corn. And we see that the water use picks up. It's a stylized curve and drops off. It's stylized because we see on this y-axis it's percent yield reduction versus different growth stages. And if you get stress at a critical time over pollination, then you can have a yield reduction up around 50%. And guess what? A lot of people saw that this year because the crop's stressed at the critical time. So how do we go about that? Well, we understand that Your irrigation capacity is constrained by what you can pump out of the ground, what you're nozzled at. How many gallons per acre per minute are you using? And so that is never going to be as much as what the crop needs. If you're operating at 5 gallons per acre per minute, about 0.27 inches per day, that crop at peak water use is going to be up around 0.35, 0.4 inches per day. So you are not going to be able to keep up with that crop. You go into that knowing that that's the case. So you're going to be under-irrigated at the key time that stress is going to really hurt you. So you've got to manage that. There is also a time early on when you can put more water on than that crop's using. Trouble is, if you put too much more water on than that crop is using, then that crop gets, well, 3 things happen. One is you're pumping water that you don't need. So there's a straight up cost. Then if the soil can't hold it, you're washing it through and you're causing drainage. And that's washing fertiliser through the soil and with leaching. And so that's a cost, and it's an opportunity cost of what that fertiliser could have done to yield. But you know the biggest cost is that if you're over-irrigating early, that plant will get the wrong message and it will set itself up incorrectly. You're going to have a shallower root system because that plant doesn't have to try and search for moisture. And guess what? That's what you need to carry you through this period. Irrigation won't cut it. There is a time in there where you have to rely either on rainfall, you get lucky, or you plan for it and you create a bigger root system and you watch that plant growing that bigger root system. And so that is going to carry you through those 3, 4, 5, whatever, however many inches out of the soil that you can pull is going to get you through that hump. And then at the end, we'll also have the ability to put more water on than the crop's using. So we need to just get that right. You need to understand that you can over-irrigate at the end. When do you cut off? Well, we've got a tool that can tell you exactly what is the right time. So what does that look like in practice? We have what's called an irrigation template. And so I thank the previous speaker for explaining what the stair-stepping is. And so the day-night stair-stepping, very crucial with this technology. Okay, we don't even bother with a scale on this side in terms of how many inches of water use. It's simply watching the plant. That's how this tool is so effective. We've got an opportunity to listen to the plant. It can tell us how it's growing simply by how big are those stair steps. And so this happens to be a summed graph. And so that blue line, as we just heard, is when the soil is full. And then we've got this red line here, which we're actually varying at different stages. And that's because we're trying to go into this with a strategy, an investment strategy for turning water into money. This is corn. What we're trying to do, broadly speaking, those yellow lines are my strategy. I don't want to put too much water on early because I want that plant, I want to have water in the soil, I want to start full, so I want to watch the soil filling up if I'm trying to bank water. But then I don't want to overwater. I want to let that plant establish a good root system. But I also want to make sure that I fill the profile coming into that critical period. So it's a bit like saying, if I'm growing a plant in a pot, a potted plant, that if I let it go and let those roots go, then I'm going to end up with a bigger pot. Then I want to fill that pot and only let it come down halfway through this critical period. So I've got a reserve in there that I can draw on if I need to. If it gets real hot, I've got that water bank there that I can draw on. And then at the end of the season, I don't want to overwater. I want to put just the right amount on. But if I was, a good analogy is if I'm in a race car and I don't want to finish a car race with a full tank of gas. There's no point. I want to finish, so I get across that line, but with an empty tank or close to it, because then I can let nature fill that soil again, hopefully, at this time of year. So that yellow line is a strategy. That is strategic irrigation management, going into that, knowing what that crop needs and trying to cater for that and push it in the right direction. And different crops require different strategies. So the strategy for corn will be different to the strategy for cotton, which will be slightly different for sorghum and so on.